All right, it is that time. I see you guys already starting to take off in chat out there. Great to see you, Soulwood. You're new. I haven't seen you unless you've changed your actual YouTube name at some type. I can't even. Boris, great to see you from Greece. That is amazing. I always get a shock out of some of you guys that come in from across the ocean, especially considering I live in a state that's almost bigger than some of your guys' countries, right? So with that said, as you guys know, I know more people are joining us. We're picking up pace real quick. Brian, I see you out there. Good time, all time kind of follower, shows up all the time. I actually got a chance to meet Brian at one point, guys, when I was traveling the last go around. But outside of that, if you're new here, you just saw our post on social. I am Fusion Phil over here at jitcadcam. We provide services for Autodesk products like Fusion 360, Inventor CAM, HSM Works. We also provide other things inside of the Autodesk world. However, on these Friday sessions, we mainly focus on Fusion primarily. Now, we do host these actual events and these every week, as much as we can, we should say. That said, anytime you guys are feeling that you're loving the content or anything that you want to see in particular, or you learn something new, just know you don't have to be our customer directly with a support plan or buying training. You can always just buy me a beer. So let's dive into this. But before I dive into it, as you guys know, the reason why I want to point out the Buy Me a Beer program is because I'm not going to drink a beer on stream. I thought about getting some NAs, but I am going to crack open this energy drink that I've been needing very badly. So guys, if you have questions at any time, feel free to throw them in chat. I'm going to go ahead and start off with a part one of our customers actually reached out to us and wanted to know a little bit more. So get my screen share up. I'm assuming you guys can hear me all right. Elijah's out there. Awesome. Great to see you, Elijah. Welcome back once again. So as you guys can see, I have my part pulled up in front of me. This was a customer reaching out. They didn't need to do necessarily a million of these parts. They're only doing some onesie twosies. And in most cases, this is why you're going to need somebody like us over here for support, because they felt as if they almost got in over their head. So as you're going to see, Brian, do I have videos on part transfers? I do. I'll even do a part transfer on this part because we're going to run through this part a little bit until you guys start flooding me with some questions. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into manufacture. We're going to go ahead and create my setup. Now, on a part like this, you're probably going to be dealing with a forging or a blank. I'm going to go ahead and set this up as if we're going to turn this profile and then we're going to mill it in a separate operation. So as you guys can see here, if you've ever seen any of my content, we got a lot of tips and tricks. We do things like utilize templates here because the goal is not necessarily right now to actually show you how to use this lathe tool pathing, as you can see. And I forgot to hide my toolbar. So guys, give me a quick sec. Let me put this back on my face, make it a little bit easier for you guys to see. I had to turn this on the other day because I was gone for 2 days straight and I needed to remote in. And when your taskbar keeps getting hidden, it's a total pain. But as you guys can now see, OD rough, OD finish. We're not actually going to part this part off, so I'm going to delete that tool path. But as a whole, we've gotten things going. Now, Brian, to answer your question right off the rip, what I would need to do a subspindle transfer is first and foremost, we need to do a spindle grab. Now, the important thing is you do need to set your subspindle location on certain machines. If you're on something like a Mazak or an Akuma, I know you guys do some fancy work shift stuff over the years versus going from one work offset to another and then doing what would be referred to as a B-axis offset in your subspindle. But as you're seeing, all I'm going to do right now is I'm going to tell the software that I want to grab a certain distance in, right? Now, for most of you out there, yes, this is unrealistic grabbing in on a part profile like this just because maybe we should have machined the backside first. I'm just here to give you guys the process. I'm also using these lathe tool paths to get me a blank material for doing some of our 5-axis machining on these gears. So again, all I need to do is I need to tell the software how far I need to grab in. Now, keep in mind this number that it's showing me here is distance from my WCS. I set up my stock super hasty here. That's why that number isn't actually matching. Now that I have my grab, a lot of times, this is where you need to make a decision, and I do have a video on this, Brian, for you, is do I bar pull Or am I working with just one slug of material and I'm just going to return? Now, I'm going to do a normal return overall. Now, we could return this to a lot of different locations, including a machine position in particular. Now, this is all up to you how you're going to go about it on your end. And again, we're going to unclamp the main spindle. So just like that, Brian, very easily, working with a slug of material I can't actually bar feed, you can see that's all it took to do that subspindle transfer. Now, the post processor is going to handle a lot of this for me, but this is where I'm going to go in. I'm going to create my new setup. My Z is now pointed the opposite way. I want to go from proceeding. And then we want to make sure we have continuous rest machining turned on. Now, guys, I'm going to tell you the honest truth. Go ahead and check this box, because once you set this as a default, it's very rare that you're actually going to uncheck that. So again, we're now working back the other way. In this case, again, let's sprinkle on a little bit of the good old fashioned template. Again, we don't need a part off, so I'm going to delete that last tool path. And as you guys can see, we're going way too far back in this part, right? This is where we can do things like utilize rest machining, and just like that, it's automatically trimmed that out. Now I could rest machine my finishing tool path, or I could again derive, go straight to finishing, which means things like rest machining that I just set is automatic, right? So again, the idea here for this next portion where we dive into actually machining out where all those gear teeth are, is the ability to utilize just quick tool paths to generate my stock, right? So as you guys saw me go through here, I now have that green stock model. So let's do a new setup. Again, I see a lot more of you guys coming in here time and time again. If you guys have any questions at any time, feel free to throw them in chat. We are here for you. And this is just some good old-fashioned busy work by request from somebody else. So now we're set up for milling. Now, again, I love this because Autodesk watches these videos, which makes me absolutely ecstatic. But this would be something I would love to see fixed when we start to talk about the fact that when I'm using continuous rest machining, it's trying to show me the slug versus everything else. Now, you can go ahead and try to toggle this off in a lot of different ways, but as you're seeing, there's no good way to get rid of that cylinder until we start to add other tool paths. Now, from here, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to jump over to multi-axis. Now, for a lot of you out there, you're going to notice that we don't actually have a multi-axis roughing tool path. Now, in this case, we could get away with doing something like rotary pocket that is going to help us out quite a bit. So that's what I'm going to go for here in this case. So let's go ahead and utilize a tool of some sort. Now, the customer did provide me a tool list. This is where our lovely customer is going to find out that, one, I don't understand millimeters because it never got us to the moon, but I'm going to utilize inch tooling because it's quicker and easier for me to reference mentally. Now, as you can see, we have our tool. We're working, in this case, around our Z axis, right? And with that, we have a lot of different options when it comes down to the geometry, the lengths, the heights, this, that, and the other. Now, in my personal opinion, with the exception of turning up my tolerance, a lot of times I like to hit OK. This is probably one of the most important thing a lot of you guys out there will realize is that OK button at the end of the day is extremely powerful. As you're going to see, it is right now going to go out and machine everything, to which this is where I can trim back the fat or remove certain areas that I don't want. So let's do that now. So again, we go ahead and edit our tool path. We start in our geometry tab. Now we do have rest machining by default. So sometimes, and this is why I'm going to show you guys this, I don't know what is going to happen, but if I jump too far down this list or I jump too many tabs in, I can actually be self-destructive and cause my own problems. Now, when y'all send me tickets using the support email down below, a lot of you have caught me on this where all I do when you tell me you have a tool path problem, I go pick your tool path and your tool and I hit OK. I can't stress this enough, right? This is the $680 charge that we give for support, is for me to go hit OK. That's not true. We do a lot of other things in that support package. But as you're going to see, I would honestly, in most cases, prefer to filter and work down my list. Now, as you can see, I could go to a selected front. Now, again, as I'm going to need my furthest forward point. Now, there is some undercutting here, which isn't the biggest deal. Again, that's a problem for when we were on the lathe, right? But as you can see, I've now defined a different front and back location. So let's go ahead and hit OK and see what we get this time around. How's everybody's Friday while that toolpath loads? I do need to put this on a machine as well. Now, as you guys can see, again, I have now got my blue lines closer to where I want them. And by utilizing the front and the back method, it has allowed us to get in what would be considered our Z-axis. Now, the reason why I say Z-axis is yes, because that blue line represents our rotary Z, our work offset Z, but also looking at this more in a lathe mindset, I tend to like to do this with turbines and gears, is it's kind of a front to back type of scenario, right? Because it's called as a front mode, back mode. Front start of the rotary, back start or back finish of the rotary. Now, again, is if we go in and we sprinkle on a little bit of rest machining now, we're not having to rest machine anything outside of that containment area, right? Sound's dropping off. Let me get closer to my mic. Is that any better there, Deep Thinker? By the way, great to see you here once again. So, again, we've now gotten rest machining to work very well. And what I'm going to do is, again, you guys have a lot of tips and tricks out there, but I'm going to turn off my linking moves. Because really what I care about right now is those blue lines. Blue lines, super important. Linking moves, that's the last tab of my toolpath. It's the last thing I should be adjusting and messing with. But as you can see, I am getting in there with a 1/4 inch end mill and roughing these guys out quite well. Now, we're not quite getting deep enough. This is where we might do something like derive, go into now, in this case, we're going to go multi-axis rotary pocket again, swap out to a smaller tool. And as you guys are really going to see the power here is because of the way I've kind of set this up and started to utilize boundaries and rest machining to my advantage, it's going to speed up the process at what we have to remove in material. So let's go down to like an 1/8 inch end mill. To the customer that provided this lovely part, you guys are going to understand they're across the ocean too. They sent it in. They're not going to make it here today live, but they are a big fan of non-bald eagle units. So again, we're going to let that go ahead and calculate out. Elijah, I see you out there, emailed help with my lures. Sure thing. We'll get those lures pulled up and take a look again here. If you don't mind, Elijah, go ahead and throw your question in chat while we wait on this toolpath. Because once we get this fun stuff all knocked out, as you're seeing again, we're going to wait for that stock model to come in. Looks like we got some craziness going on. And now we're having a problem where our blue lines aren't getting where we want. I'm going to give you guys a moment real quick. And I'm going to ask you, why is it do you think my blue lines aren't getting far enough down on my part? So I'm going to open this up to you. Throw in chat why you think that's not happening. And in the meantime, I'm going to go grab Elijah's part out of my inbox. Oh, he's got 2 parts. This guy's double dipping on the free support this week. Hey, that reminds me, Elijah, now looking at your email and everything, Heidi got a hold of you, correct? She's supposed to be making her way out to see you one of these days. Let's go ahead and get these fishing lures pulled in. And let me get my OBS studio pulled back up so I can see that nobody got the right answer. Fishing Friday. I'm going to have to add that to the list right under Fanic Phil, Firearms Phil, Fast and the Furious Phil. So again, I don't see any of you. Nobody's even guessing at this. Are you guys just like doing the Jeopardy thing, not answering the question so you don't get negative points? So as you guys can see, the reason why odds are we're not getting far enough down is when you start to deal with multi-axis toolpaths, you start to get what's called shaft and holder clearance. Now, what that is doing is automatically telling us that because the tools stick out in this particular case, it will not exceed any time that it gets within said distances of that holder. Now, again, this is where Autodesk could be nice to be able to utilize something like detect tool length like we see in other toolpaths. But one of the things is we could go ahead and make that holder a little smaller and we may get a much better toolpath. So let's get that calculating. Again, great thing about Fusion. Now, I see this question a lot. What computer should I get? What is Fusion Phil using? You guys, I'm on an i7. It is a 14th gen, but I didn't prompt for the i9 because I don't really need the additional cores. One cool thing about that is, as you guys are going to see here, is we can quickly start going in and creating more and more tool paths on a part like this. Especially, this is where when the person watches this video, the reason why I'm going multi-axis finishing is because this is where we can get into the fun of things like circle segment cutters and barrel cutters. Now, again, for those of you that don't know, our cutter here kind of looks like a bullet or the tip of a round, right? That's my firearms fill coming out. But because we have such a huge radius down here on our tool, we can actually make a lot less step overs or get a much better surface finish out of a tool like this. So let's go ahead and throw a holder on this. Again, we're going to need some type of holder. So Cat 40, what's this guy look? That's going to be terrible. Let's go into our holders and see what we can come up with. So again, I just need something that's going to stick out a mile. Love to see it. We're going to go ahead and shorten that tool up a little bit inside of that holder. And as you guys can see now, again, way crazy kind of combination. If you guys didn't check out my video, I do have a video now out on how to bring in custom tool holders and convert them from a step model. Again, what we're going to do is we're going to machine the walls here. And now, one thing about this is, as you guys will see, is you're seeing me start to do a lot more stuff. That doesn't mean I'm skipping the cardinal rule of hitting OK. But what I'm going for is, one, areas to be machined, walls. If I hit OK right now, it's going to prompt me to pick my floor surface as well as my wall surface, right? So as you can see, I need to give this a floor. Now, there's my floor. And what is going to be my walls? Again, I'm treating this as a valley, so I'm giving it 2 sets of walls. And we're going to see what we get for a tool path. So again, we were able to start to create these tool paths and start to work on things, even though that other stuff was calculating. So again, you're going to notice we're not quite fully getting in there. There's a lot of reasons why. Again, this could be strictly because the size of our tool, or again, our tool clearances, right? So I'm going to start with the easiest of things, which is let's get the tool a little bit smaller and see what we get. So again, as you're going to see, flute length must be greater than or equal to center point of the profile radius. So let's get that bumped up so we can get rid of some of this. In that case, this is where everything becomes super fun because yours truly is just going to start throwing numbers at this so that we can get rid of that error. But again, we have tons of videos on this, guys. So let's start with a little smaller diameter, right? Which is probably going to cause us some other problems. The reason why I like this method is because what I'm doing is a simple troubleshoot. That tool should go in there, but it's not going in there. Why doesn't it want to go in there? And as you can see, it's simply enough. This is a very small tooth profile, which means my tool size makes all of the difference. Again, I'm going to go ahead and pause here for a minute because there's a whopping 19 of you guys out there and nobody's asking questions, which partially scares me. But as you can see, on some parts like this, again, you guys failed to get the information that was provided to me, which is this is actually going to go on a UMC 750. So let's go ahead and go pull us a UMC 750 in here from Haas. Now, I'm really hoping the customer has the SS version. I cannot remember off the top of my head. Very handy at the end of the day. So let's get this model downloaded. And from there, we're going to go ahead and get our part positioned up, and then we're going to simulate this. Elijah, what's going on, man? Nobody's out there asking questions. We now have 20 plus people in here, so I assume my Facebook post has made it to the Fusion groups. Again, we're now sprinkling in our machine. As you're going to see, we're just going to get this part up off the table. And that's so that when we start to swing our 5-axis stuff. Now, it would be wise for all of you guys to go ahead and apply fixtures here so that we can do things like fixture clearances and things like that. Cosmin knows it all. Cosmin, maybe we're going to make you a special guest one of these weeks and you'll have to answer all these questions live. Deep thinker on an early Friday. Let's go. Love to see it. Love to hear it, right? So now that we have our machine in place, we have our tool path. You know what? Let's go ahead and simulate this out. Now, you guys are going to see me simulate this different than you guys normally simulate it. This is where I'm going to tell you that, one, do not assume anything about the button I'm about to push, but if you do want to get in to get that button, as well as something like a roughing strategy and multiple blanks, I can direct you there by hitting us up at the info email address. So as you guys are going to see here, we're going to go ahead and start our simulation. And again, based on a lot of our settings right now, we are working back and forth inside of that area. Again, we're going to go ahead and set up our comparison. I'm going to turn my accuracy up a little bit more, and we're going to see how crazy we can get with this based on a few things that Autodesk has released recently. Yep, she's still chugging a little bit. There's a lot going on in this model, but as you're seeing, again, this is only a $1,300 computer. It is a desktop computer, but I'm able to actually simulate pretty smoothly. But as you're seeing, we're working back and forth down inside that valley. Again, we could turn that back down here, get a little better view of what's going on. So in the case of something like these teeth, obviously a gear hob would have been a really smart choice, doing it a couple of different ways. Now, if you're doing something around your house and you broke a gear in this case, you could go ahead and machine one out, relatively simple, obviously using these couple of tool paths. Now, what else was asked to me in particular was, how do I finish this out? So as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and take this tool path. Now, we only did one area, right? I'm going to go ahead and set this up with a pattern. And what that pattern is going to allow is a circular pattern. I'm going to base this around center of rotation, and I am going to make the best educated guess I can on how many teeth we have all the way around. So it looks like we actually have more than 16, looks like 18 teeth. As you can see, my tool paths are lining up pretty good with all of those areas. Again, just like that, rotary pocket to rough something out, little rest machining to open it up a little bit more. Lastly, coming in with our actual multi-axis finishing. Now, again, we may need to do multi-axis finishing on the floor as well, but as you guys can see, something like a challenging project like this isn't that bad. So I'm going to go ahead and pivot gears. Now, as you can see, Jacob's here for Elijah's emotional support. Love to see it. Is this where he's going to break down when he's all mad when we start looking at his parts? So I'm going to go ahead and pop open Elijah's part. Let me go ahead and get everything refreshed. So again, we have our June 6th stuff. Which one do you want me to work with first? Do you want the lure fixture 3 each or the lure op 2? Op 1. I'm assuming that's fixture set of 3. So everything so far is looking pretty good. I have to give you props. Looks like you're utilizing some lovely Mighty Bites. Great way to hold your material, especially if you're doing something with a pallet setup. So as I'm assuming, Elijah's going to go ahead and quick swap these out of his machine. So let's jump over to the manufacturing. Now, in this case, he's yet to give me a setup, which only makes my life better. But as you guys are going to see here, there's a lot of ways you could actually program something like this at home. As you're going to see, I'm going to go ahead and create my setup. Now, instead of getting too wild and too crazy with everything right off the start, I'm going to go ahead and set up my XYZ looks good. I am going to base everything off of his design tree. Now, we're going to see which ones we got here. It looks like he's got his base. He's got lures with stock. Now, this is where we find out real quick, did he organize this properly? And it looks like he did. So we're going to start with the front one. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and throw our stock on here from solid. Now, I do need to figure out which one the stock is. And as you guys are probably questioning right now, is why is it that I'm going through and more or less machining just one of these? Now, the reason why I'm doing just one is based on a first setup scenario. I am going to pattern each additional one from here. Now, the importance of components right now is when you guys are going to see this pattern take effect. So let's get some tool paths on here. All right, right off the rip, I'm going to go in. Let's see what do we have. We have a 3-axis mill rough situation. As you are now seeing, we're decking off the top of our part. I'm going in and I'm using 3D adaptive clearing to rough things out. And then lastly, we do have 3D contour here. Probably not the best of choices, but as you're seeing, this worked out pretty well for this first part. So from this, if I take all of my tool paths using Control or Shift, Again, I'm going to look at doing a new pattern. Now, what this pattern option I'm going to use is called component pattern. Because Elijah built this out the proper way and made each individual body here its own component, it makes this very easy for me to set up. So if I go in and I pick my part model here, or if I pick it over here on the left, what you're going to notice that quick, it has duplicated to each additional component that is similar. So again, this is very nice to be able to do. Now you can order these a lot of different ways. Maybe Elijah wants to just run the very first one fully. I could say preserve order, which means it's going to face, rough, finish, chamfer, drill, and then move on to the next one. Now, a few other ones is in the event that you want it to actually go through and use the same tool for both roughing and finishing, kind of like I'm doing down here if I get scrolled down to it, is you can see I'm using tool 2 to rough, and then I'm using tool 2 to also finish. I may actually want to rough, 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 then finish, 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 which means we're going to keep the operation order. Yes, we'll jump back and forth a little bit more, but it's not a huge deal. And then lastly, order by tool just means, if you're using tool 2 a bunch, stay on the same part till we go to the next one, right? So again, utilizing that pattern technique, I'm picking up what he's trying to do in different locations. So again, from there, as you guys can see, we're going to have to go ahead and regenerate that roughing. But as you're going to watch me work through this even more, we do have things like fixture detection now causing me some problems. And again, this is why we make these free support Fridays. I see even more of you guys out there. Everybody is speechless in chat this week, but we did do videos on this as well. So let's get our toolpaths back up here to the top, and let's go in and troubleshoot our toolpath. So by default, utilizing a fixture in our setup, we've actually changed how a void machine surface works from the older style inside of Fusion. So if I wanted to specifically for this toolpath, override what I would call a global or at my setup level setting, I could easily come in and say, axial wise, which means Z in this case, I want to get 150 thou closer. So again, as I'm going to plug in negative 150, you're going to notice we're at 196 versus 046. And just like that, that toolpath is now going to reach down even further and machine around our part. Now, something else to keep in mind here, I don't know who designed this with 2 different size Mighty Bites or if something got moved, Elijah. But as you can see, again, this is a neat thing that's happening in real time is because the Mighty Bite itself is sticking up. Who knows why? Blame the engineer, always. Even then, my fixture avoidance is coming in and saying, hey, this is in the way. Let's stay away from it by 50 thou. Now, one problem with using component pattern, right? As you guys can see on Elijah's setup, he has 1, 2, and 3. And if we go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and jump back to design because it'll be easier to see. But all of them are facing identically the same direction. But his Mighty Bite spacing is only identical across 2, not all 3. So this is just something where, again, maybe you rotate this third one 180 degrees and fix your Mighty Bite. This reminds me, maybe we should start a roast my toolpath segment, right? But anyways, as you guys can see, I just want to point that out because if we start to look into our component pattern for toolpaths, you're going to notice that we are avoiding this Mighty Bite. If this Mighty Bite was sticking up, we would be machining it off, right? So again, based on this one here, it's even doing that avoidance. So this is where we get into that argument. What is the better way to do it, Fusion Phil? Should I use component pattern? When is it valuable? When is it not? Well, first, design your jig right? Just kidding, Elijah. I'm going to go ahead and ditch the component pattern. I'm going to move my toolpaths out of there. Let's delete it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my setup. So again, this is where we can go through and do a completely different thing. I'm going to make an assumption here that in Elijah's case, he's using a 0-point fixture system, which would mean he's probably using bottom center on a lug somewhere that is a known reference position, right? Now from that, I can just triple up everything I've done. So again, this is a neat trick that when you're trying to get something into production and you're trying to duplicate stuff, it's always easier to work on one part than it is to go through and work on all 3 simultaneous. But that means in the world of Fusion, we need a to and a from based on threes. So again, we need 3 parts, which means we need 3 stock. Mighty Byte is lower in real life. That's good. I'm glad to hear that the Mighty Bytes ended up where they should have been. So again, as you guys are seeing me do here, I'm going to regenerate my toolpath. Now we are getting a little bit of wasted cycle time, and we can fix this. This is where we get into the technicalities of why it is important to machine one, get a perfect part. Let's transition into how much fun we can have utilizing something like production machining. So again, I'm going to go in. We are working with separate stocks, not a bounding box of stock. So this is where something quick like face contour, we're going to go ahead and turn on our stock. Again, we're going to go ahead and pick each face. And as you can see, I've now made my 3 separate stocks come through. And now we're still getting about the same toolpath, but the goal is to limit really how much it's going to do, right? So again, if we wanted to, instead of using our facing profile, this is where you might actually say, you know what? My stock is smaller than my face mill. Let's do 2D contour instead. I'm going to go ahead and pick this side here, here, and here. We're going to go ahead and flip direction on these. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use now stock to leave to bump myself over to the right just a little bit. So again, stock to leave, minus 250, 0 axial. And now we're just making 3 clean passes down the center, right? So again, this is a little different way to speed up your production and get a much faster cycle time. So again, we could go down. Now we're going to look at 3D adaptive clearing. As you're going to see on 3D adaptive clearing, I'm going to have to regenerate this again either way. If I reorder my 3D adaptive clearing again, Elijah, is avoiding this Mighty Byte, but that's more than okay, right? So again, as you're seeing, when we get into the world of doing things with 3D toolpaths, it tends to work much better for you. Now, something else that would work really, really good, let's get this all limited back up so that you guys can see this, is when we start talking about, you know, do I use 3D for finishing? Do I use 2D? Again, everybody is different. Every scenario is different. As you guys are seeing me do here, maybe inside this case, I'll go through and I'll say silhouette of each part instead. I only want to do the outer loops, not those inner circles. And as you guys are seeing, this is the value of getting things set up correctly or being able to self-determine what it is that you need, right? So again, fixture top is how far down I want to go. I want to stay above the fixture top, 0.25. And just like that, using silhouette, instead of using a selected edge, I'm quickly creating those toolpaths. So Elijah, what's your questions that you really have about these parts? Because I assume they're not about the backside, right? They got to be about the front side. I do know these are made out of 303 stainless, as I'm hearing. Now, in my case, if I was working with a little bit more of an exotic material, whether or not it's bigger or smaller, I may change up how I do this adaptive clearing versus pocket clearing by all means. So let's go ahead and create our second setup. I am going to treat this as in we are only doing one of these guys on the flip. Let me get back into our design tree and pick just that first lure. Again, from preceding setup is going to be a little brutal here because, again, in our first setup, we picked all 3 models. In our second setup, we're trying to only use one, which is going to leave us with stock times 3. So we'll get that fixed here real quick. Again, just for demonstration purposes, we're going to go ahead and go back to the system of 1. I know I've been doing a lot of jibber jabbering to most of you out there about, hey, you could do this, you could do that, use this pattern, use that pattern, right? So again, now our rest machining should come through much better. Obviously, we need to flip our Z-axis again. And just like that, that's what we're left with working. Now, again, I could probably take my adaptive clearing. I'm just copy and pasting it with Control-C, Control-V. And just like that, we're now roughing back the other way and creating that profile. Now, Elijah, the question would be is, do you have any machining extensions? Do you not? Things of that nature. If so, or if not, buy it from me. Send us an email. We'll get you a quote. So you do. Awesome. Perfect. Did you know you can also renew that stuff through us now? We've figured out a way when your renewals due, let us know. We'll get you moved over to jitcadcam. So right off the rip, there's a lot of things you could do to this. Now, you guys have seen me do the whole concept of the derive a lot, right? So this is where, regardless of kind of where I go in the world of 3D toolpath, I'm going to start with scallop, swap out my tool. I'm assuming you're using a ball end mill. So let's go ahead and get us a nice ball end mill. And again, we can leave this as default, but each toolpath that I start to go, he has next gen. There's nothing wrong with next gen, guys. They're a great company. I used to work there. Obviously, much better to come over here to this side of the fence. But as you can see, something like a scallop toolpath works really, really good because it tends to offset your passes based on the outermost boundary. Now, I do need to fix this a little bit. As you're going to see, as I'm going to go into my scallop, and with you, you're going to see, Elijah, you can still go with us. It's not a big deal, man. We have your contact info. I'll tell Heidi to come over and get your licenses moved. So as you guys can see, we have our silhouette, tool center. I'm going to go ahead and kick on contact boundary. If you guys did or did not know this, this is going to go ahead and shift the center line of the tool, which is what's happening on my tool path, right? We get to center line of the tool and it just stops. We're not fully going down around that fillet. So again, one little simple change. Now we do need to go back and make one more change because we're going way too far now, which is going to be, we don't need a boundary overlap. We're kind of just doing a one and done. And again, based on the radius of the tool, at some point we get down here where we start to make our vertical passes and it cuts us short. Now it may also be cutting us short down here on the tip. So this is also something for you guys to keep in mind. Let me get over here where it's not behind my big old head. Because of our heights boundary, that is going to leave us in a bad situation. So again, Elijah, I don't know how you're machining this. An easy fix if I wanted to stay with that large end mill. Let's go ahead and drag our bottom height down a little bit. And as you can see, we're now wrapping down and around, so forth and so on. So again, a scallop toolpath could be very, very beneficial in a situation like this. Now, the reason why I want to show you guys this is because even though we've gotten this scallop toolpath, let's go ahead and do a few things. This is why we can quickly pivot with derive again. Let's go ahead and do a parallel path. As you're going to see, we can see which direction our parallel's going. This might be the token, right? A few other things, as you can see, is I'm going to go ahead and switch from manufacturer back to design. But in the event, let's get these all popped back out here. I'm going to go ahead and do an isolate for you guys. So this is the one we're working on. Now I'm going to apply a patch over these two holes. And as you guys can see, that is going to make my toolpath much cleaner and faster when I start to work on these different strategies. So again, we could go model, pick those two patches to add, including our setup. And now you're going to notice we're not dipping into those areas. So I'm adding that on there temporarily as we go. So as you can see, I don't know what's going on in this chat anymore, but we're up to 22. So as you guys can see, again, the idea is when you're doing something like this and you have questions about surface finishes, is you can quickly, as soon as you kind of get one figured out, you can play the game of pick and choose and which one's going to be the right one. Now, when you get into some of the other toolpaths here for 3D finishing, you're going to notice that you're going to change gears from being a boundary to a surface driven scenario. So again, as if I was to go blend in this case, as you're going to see, it's going to want drive surfaces. So this is where I could go around the outside of this part and pick those surfaces. Now, blend is designed for external fillets, right? So as you're seeing, it's the perfect solution going around this part. Now, I do need to give this drive curves as well. As you can see, I can pick my lower rail. And just like that, we're going to go ahead and blend around that part. And what that might work out better than scallop everywhere, right? Maybe we only do the scallop toolpath in a selected area. And this is my selected area. And again, I'm going to go ahead and throw those surface patches in here this time around. So again, there's my two surface patches since we didn't have them. So now we're doing a scallop toolpath specifically in that actual bigger, flatter, shallower area. And then we're doing a blend toolpath to clean up that outside fillet. Again, giving us those nice clean lines around our part. Now, again, there's no right or wrong here. We could have, of course, tried something with something like geodesic. If this is a new toolpath that you've never touched, Brian, I'm going to get to that in a minute. But as you're going to see in geodesic, the luxury of geodesic is the fact that it is really aimed at weird, shallow surfaces, right? So as you can see here, this is kind of a weirder, shallow surface. Now, he's not flat. He is flat, but he's not flat in a 3-axis environment. So that being said, as geodesic could be extremely handy. So again, geodesic, if I pick my toolpath and have no idea what I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. It's now asking me what is the surface I want to machine. And as you're going to notice now, we have different types of passes, right? Scallop, blend, again, kind of the same as what you've done so far, but we can up the ante here. And this is why I like it, because we can either use the boundary, which would be the outermost edge, or we could create lines, circle, curves. We could select a curve that we want to follow for that toolpath to replicate off. So again, as you guys are going to see here, we're going to go ahead and give this our 2 patches as well. And we're going to make sure that it knows that is part of the model. And again, at the simplest level, there is a scallop profile running back and forth. Maybe instead, I want that surface to look more like a blend. So again, this is going to be night and day difference for a lot of you, where you realize I can't use blend because blend is more of a walls and fillet strategy, right? So just like steep and shallow, this toolpath does have the ability to only kind of stay in one or the other, kind of like you guys saw me do with multi-axis finishing, right? There was a walls versus floor strategy. So let's do steep and shallow. So I'm going to go ahead, go back to this parallel. It's the only toolpath I don't think I've butchered so far. 3D, steep and shallow. Again, luxuries features right here is based on 30 degrees. We're going to switch from what's more or less going to be contour or ramp into what would either be scallop or parallel. So again, as you guys can see, we can change our step down versus a completely different step over. And just like that, we've kind of done it all in one, right? So once we get over to these edges, you're going to get some nice blending between the changes in profiles. Even the top, again, we still get that nice scallop strategy. But I'm doing this all with the same confines of getting blue lines where I want them first, and then just deriving everything else off of it. Geodesic isn't in the extension. I didn't know that. I thought geodesic was in the extension, but that's a great thing to point out. If it's not, I was pretty sure it is. So guys, do you have any questions on your end? I know a lot of you guys are out there. You're probably sitting there loading parts in the machine with a million questions. But as you guys have seen me go through, we've started to dive into a couple of different parts, a couple of different scenarios, how to do this, how to do that. In this case, on the fishing lures, what's going to help you do a ton is, first and foremost, Elijah, what machine are you running on? Do you have a 4th axis or do you have just a 3-axis? I'll give you a few seconds to answer there. So it's only a 3-axis. See, that sucks. Not terribly, but it does kind of stink, because had you had a 3 or a 4 or 5 axis, we could get off of the tip of the tool. And we talked about this last week. There's only 1 flute to center on a ball, maybe 2 if you're lucky, is now doing things like leaning the tool, right? So again, as we can lean the tool over 20 degrees and things of that nature. And now with that being said, our full 5-axis tool path, getting off the tip of the tool, allowing us to run a little quicker or achieve a better surface finish with the same amount of time. Got to put DeBurr in the standard subscription. So guys, I don't know if you guys know this, but the reason why a lot of this stuff hangs out in the extension is because it's module works. So you know everybody's got to get their piece of the puzzle, right? Cool, guys. Any other questions outside of that? How you guys feeling? What are you guys thinking? Is this looking like some fun stuff for you? I'm going to go ahead and jump back over to this other guy here real quick. number one thing for all of you to understand is when you guys build machine sims, do not leave the enclosure on. It drives me mad. Do you see how the enclosure is in the way when you're trying to just look at your setup? What sucks about this is when you start to go through your part profiles, again, you can have the machine turned on, but when we actually try to do our setup, right? As you can see, the entire enclosure is in the way. Let me know. You guys want to see how to turn that off? I'm more than happy to show you. In the meantime, though, as you guys may or may not know, you are more than welcome to buy me a steak, buy me a beer, buy your Fusion, move your Fusion, even get things like support packages, or my favorite thing ever is we have started to do these free training events all across the US. I'm legally allowed to say all across the US because we did one down in Texas. We're doing one in Oklahoma in 2 weeks. And now, which way am I here? There we go. Do not take the dates on this at the moment officially, but we are going to be doing one in Minnesota. I know we have a lot of other places that are now reaching out to us and wanting to get there as quick as possible and get signed up so that we can provide a 3-day boot camp to each and every one of you out there. So just know, guys, we are going to release more information about this. If you are in the Minnesota area, feel free to go to our website. You can get signed up right now, and we can keep you updated on the dates and times and when we are going to do that. So with that, any other questions from anybody? I see you guys getting all pumped out there. Dylan up in Canada. Dylan, we do not have anything scheduled in Canada right now, but if you send us whoever your machine vendor is, we're happy to harass them. You want an Autodesk headquarters. What headquarters are you talking about? Because I used to work out of the one that was in Denver. North Dakota? Dylan, you want to come down to my house in North Dakota? Actually, this is a good time to say this. What do you guys feel about like a pheasant hunting tournament and a boot camp up here in North Dakota? Because I mean, I probably see 8-9 pheasants every day when I'm driving my truck to and from town. Dylan, you're more than welcome to come down to our house. We got an Airbnb room for you, man. You can stay with us. We'll do a 3-day training. Louisiana. I don't think we're going to make it to Louisiana anytime soon, but I would tell you, Deep Thinker, is if you wanted to come up to the Tulsa one in 2 weeks, that'd be perfect. We are working on trying to get something set up in Florida. Again, guys, I have to say, we did this first one. We're working on our second one. We have 9 different machine vendors right now, all bugging us about like, can we do one at our place? You know, like we got to get the dates and times worked out and everything like that. I will say, if you all want to hang out with me, though, you're more than welcome to send me money and I'll come on over. So let's get back to this. Not the start intro screen again, but back to my screen. I know some people wanted to see. I was complaining about the enclosure. Yes, when you simulate stuff inside of Fusion, if you guys didn't know this, is I'm going to go ahead and simulate this. We can, of course, at the machine level, turn off the machine, turn on the machine. Now, this is where I currently am running a little different machine simulation. So let's go back to the normal machine sim. Elijah with the 10. Let's go, King Cobra. So safe retract option clearance height. All right, let me get that fixed. Where is our safe retracts? We do not want clearance height. We always want to go G53 in this case. I got to go ahead and post out some code to lock that in. And then with that being said, let's get back here. So let's do our machine sim this time around. Give her a sec to think. So again, when you guys are doing the simulation, to me, it just bothers me that it's on by default. It's no offense to Autodesk. I know how you guys build this. I love it. But you can always turn off the machine base in simulation, right? And as you guys can see, is we could go through and now run our simulation and see our whole machine work through everything. But if you're like me and you're just like, why is it even on in the first place, right? Because I love being able to look at stuff all upside down and backwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and we're going to go ahead, edit our setup. We're going to edit our machine and give this a second to pull our machine up. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to model. And what you're going to notice is you cannot machine edit while you're in the actual machine utilizing it against a setup. So this is the fun of popping out another window, switching back to manufacturer, go into my machine library. And with that, we're going to go in where, oh man, we got to remember where I just stuck that one. Technically, it's not going to matter. We could pull whatever machine we need to. Do we have it in here somewhere? I know I just downloaded it, right? So let's go in. We're going to say edit machine builder. And there was nothing more than a right click there. Now, as you can see, is if we are editing machine definition, now all you really need to do is to just make sure that you turn off the proper items, right? So again, as if you go into this list, not a great thing that these are all bodies for those of you that know me. But if I was to just turn off the static items, this is what Autodesk is referring to as the base. So again, when we look at the setup, the machine model, you have what's called the static item. This is what it's considering as the machine base, and that's what we're toggling off later. Now, you may want to up the ante and make it way cooler, which would mean is I only really want the casting, right? So again, as I'm clicking on the casting so that it will narrow me down to show me that, hey, there's the casting under the machine. Now, if that's the case, body 12 is I can actually edit and go ahead and choose only body 12, right? So again, the problem with this entire model right now is because it's not components. Now, I am going to say this one is one that we've messed with a lot, and it's an older machine sim. But because that stuff was never components, you can't pick and choose, which is why we built videos on how to organize these things best to your ability. But again, the idea is let's just turn it off visually here. When we edit our machine and machine builder, we're going to hit finish. And then with that being said, we could go back to those fishing lures, or in this case, that is our gear that we're working on. So remember, this is the Haas UMC 750 reboot. So again, we go back, we swap out that machine. We're gonna go into our Haas folder. There it is. You could see it's already turned off in the displayed image. And this is just me, guys. Maybe you guys think like me, maybe you're like me. I don't have the enclosure in the way anymore. I don't have to worry about it. And just like that, I can actually see a lot better around my machine. So, Scott, great to see you out there. Neil, I see you out there in Florida, man. We will try our best. Like I said, is we've just started getting hit up more and more about doing these trainings. I'm all about traveling the US, meeting you guys in person, and conducting these trainings. So 5-axis steep and shallow versus 3-axis, and it didn't change the tool path. Are you missing something? So odds are, is when you go in and you actually utilize steep and shallow here, is if I by default only turn on 5-axis, it's going to do what's called vertical. And what vertical means is stay 3-axis until we run into issues with the flute length, the holder, things of that nature. So if you wanted to go full 5-axis and just basically run it in a 5-axis situation, you would need to get off of vertical and switch down to lead and lean, or we have our from and to type of scenario. So if you do your lead and lean, we need to lean said tool over, right? Because again, as if you would just leave lead and lean at 0, what you're going to notice is, again, is it's going to give us basically about as much of a 3-axis tool path as we initially started with. And that's where you're going to have to start to make those adjustments. So again, looking at something like scallop, we have it up here. We turn on not tool orientation, 5-axis mode. It's by default staying vertical. So when you start working in cavities and stuff, now the idea is you're down in a valley. So you could stay vertical because you're touching the shoulder of the tool. And then as we get further and further down, you're going to want to tilt outwards, 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 inwards, inward, inwards, things of that nature. If you're working with more of a mountain type part, you're probably not going to want to sit there. You're going to want to actually start tilted and machine around it. I saw some shenanigans up top from Jacob. Jacob, who's AJ? I've never heard of AJ before. Outside of that, guys, do you have any other questions? I'm going to go ahead and pull up my ticket system real quick. Make sure nobody's sending any tickets in as I'm working through this. Oh, we don't want to do that. Let's get back over here. I did see another ticket come in that I'm going to spend a little bit of time before I jump into. Give me a few more seconds, guys. I'm going to go ahead and clean up my toolbar here real quick. There we go. And let's get OBS back up so I can see you guys. Oh, yeah. That dude does some pretty wild stuff, man. Props to that guy. Cool. So I did make a mention in our post that I was going to show you guys some of the O-Scrap shop management tool. What are you guys thinking? You guys want to see some of that? See where we're at? See what we're doing? Give you guys a few minutes for sure. Dylan, that's right. Dylan, I always forget you're so close to me when you're up in Canada. I feel like I'm out on an island in North Dakota. So let's go ahead and get this guy popped up. I'm going to go ahead and drag this over. So guys, a little buggy on my version. We have been working through this as much as we can, but since a lot of you guys are sending us support tickets from time to time, as well as all the trainings, but as a whole, it's going to look like not much has changed, but we've actually done quite a bit here, right? So very idea of this entire project is I'm one like you. I'm a machinist by trade. I've been in the shops. I've dealt with the headaches of like paperwork missing deadlines. Again, every ERP system I've ever seen has been a total pain in the butt when it comes to inputting information. So a few of the greatest things we've done so far is actually adding in our time clock feature, which means you can actually do your payroll type stuff from here. How many hours are you logging in as an employee every week? So as you're seeing, I've been clocked in forever right now. We're going to see that. But again, the idea is that you guys can actually clock in, clock out of the software, start a day, end a day, taking breaks. But then we have our time cards again for your reporting. Ignore the name that we have inside my software. Some of you are going to get a pretty good laugh out of that. But again, what good is any other ERP system if you can't quickly do something, right? So how many of you out there have been taking jobs or doing things for a customer and you want to get a pretty accurate situation going on? So again, what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to go ahead and give us a part number. Again, how many parts does our customer want? Do I want to include my prints and drawings or any other information? But as you're going to see me go through here pretty quick is hitting up something like 6061 round bar. I'm going to need 2 of those. They're going to cost me about $76 a piece. And just like that, you're going to notice we're starting to roll up the cost to do this job, right? So as you're seeing, we're going to go ahead and now add our operations. Well, the very first thing we need to do is saw cut our material. It's going to take 10 minutes to set up the saw. It's going to take 1.5 minutes per cut. What you'll notice is how quick I can run through adding these operations. Now we feel, and I've always felt that if I can blueprint this through my shop, when I quote it, it saves me all the time on the backside when I accept this job. It also allows you, as you guys are seeing at a work center level, to quickly and efficiently add in things like much more accurate pricing when it comes down to creating these quotes. So if you're somebody that's like, man, how does somebody make money? Or why don't I ever get these jobs? Or I'm being told I'm too high. We're starting to scrutinize and get this down to a point that makes more sense, right? So let's say on this part, we're going to throw it on a VF2. Then we're going to take it over to, I think I have a DVH in here. I do not. What other machine do I have in here? I know there's a Herco in here. I know there's a UMC. So again, guys, we are going to be working with this a lot more, making these windows drop down a little bit quicker for you. Again, 30 minutes worth of setup, maybe a 22-minute cycle time. But once you get everything plugged in, and you're noticing me use a lot of hotkeys just jumping from one thing to the other, is one, we're not only getting a total cost, but we're now getting what it's going to take in a lead time to go run this stuff, right? So this is where we have our price per part. We have a hypothetical now schedule already set up. We are building in the idea that if you were to accept this job right now, it's going to tell you that it can't be done within a timely manner. But just like that, we've just estimated a part. So we refer to estimates as a part. We can now roll those estimates up on a quote. So as you guys would see here is we have multiple different parts in the system. So if I wanted to go to a quote, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up P3 manufacturing, this stuff is going to end up being due the 27th. And with that, I can now go down and pick those different quotes that I've made. So this is the estimate we just made. I'm going to go ahead and add in that other part that I've already had in the system. Again, our quantities, our part numbers, price per part, and even our subtotals for our customer. So as you can see, we can go ahead and now save our quote. From there, we can actually generate a PDF. And again, these are customizable. Now, this is the big thing that we've just recently got released is right now I am staying natively inside of OScrap, right? So you guys could actually go out and you could get the QuickBooks connector set up on your end, and we could import and export all of your customers, your part numbers straight out of QuickBooks. So when we talk about this is I could have bulk imported everything you have today. We could bulk export it back and then make a live connection in real time. So things like setting up this quote, instead of me, as you guys saw me do here, I went ahead and created a PDF here to send the customer. I could have sent this to QuickBooks and then already had it in there ready to go, right? So again, what we're going to do now is we're going to mark this as if we've manually sent it. Customer has now accepted it. And as you guys are going to see is we can now convert everything over to work orders. Again, I'm on an unstable build, so you guys are going to see a little quirks here. But from that, we get to talk production, right? Now, this is where I built this, and I've been working with this to be based off the idea. We did everything at the estimate level, right? The guy in the front office or the female in the front office that's $15 an hour and put in the information. We now are switching that over and generating our work orders out to the floor, and we are putting them on the specific schedule in the specific location to be ran. I was wrong. It's a VMX. It's a Herco. It's not a Doosan. It was a Herco machine. But as you guys are seeing now, the idea is this for your guys to come in the morning. They can clock in, right off the rip, hopefully on time. Then they can jump straight to their production schedule and go straight into whatever needs to be ran or whatever's waiting on or where it is in the system. So again, the cool thing about this is we can go ahead and give our badge number in. As you can see, I'm punching in against this job. Any files that are there are associated. I'm going to do my setup. I can start recording my setup. I can even do things like starting to claim my parts, right? So it's almost lunchtime. We're going to go ahead and say we made 100 parts. We scrapped one. Our quantities are now going to update and everything is going to be reflected in real time. But the idea for us and for all of you out there is we are working on this to replace spreadsheets, right? I know a lot of you guys use spreadsheets. I see a million different spreadsheets. The bad news about a spreadsheet, it's hard to track how long it actually took on a job. Roll this information up into an easy, palatable system to see why didn't you make money on that job next time you do that job? Like, what should we be doing at the end of the day? So again, as you guys are seeing, we even have a track record of all of our production logs, what's going on, where it is in our shop. Elijah, this would be a great solution for you guys. And Jacob, yes, we are developing this in-house. So this is a solution we want to bring to the table for you guys. But again, we work with a lot of different companies. They're starting to get in here more and more. We're seeing a lot of traction on what it should say and what it's going to be built around or how it should function and things like that. So price-wise, we did currently set this up as the same price as Fusion, and we are a by user software. So again, is depending on who's in here doing stuff, as you may not meet the lady in the office because she only does QuickBooks. She doesn't need a license. But yourself as a programmer and the other guys on the floor may want to go in and have a seat. 300, that's how much I pay. I don't know where you got 300. Oh, 300 for your Fusion license. I know your Fusion license is in the 300. It's got to be at least 315. So it's 680 a year. But again, guys, because this is an in-house solution, and if you are getting set up with multiple people, feel free to reach out to us. We actually have, I think you'll have to let me know, down in the chat, there's another email called oscrap@jitcadcam. I don't know if it's in the chat, but if it is in the chat, feel free to send us an email and we can get you some more information. Elijah, I know, as you guys know, I will be passing this information off to Heidi. But again, it's so great here where the whole concept is that you guys can go in, do whatever it is that you need to do, right? So maybe I need CNC programming as a work center, and that only runs $50 an hour. Guy makes 100 grand a year. It's unbelievable. But when you're doing that quoting and you're estimating your parts, you have full control over that type of information, right? So again, I'm gonna do 100 parts. This guy's gonna go out to McMaster Car. Again, Operation 10 right off the rip is actually going to be CNC programming. And then from that, he's gonna take, I don't know, 90 minutes to set up. Technically, there is no cycle time, so it's just a flat rate, boom, $75, right? So again, you guys let me know what you think. Do you guys have questions about Fusion? Do you got more questions about this? Again, we're about an hour into this. We've done a lot in an hour. It's just been a crazy 5-axis day. But the whole concept, like I said, guys, I wanted to make it as easy as possible for you guys to get accurate pricing for your shop floor. And then from that, produce you guys a schedule that not only lets you know what's going on, what needs to be done, where it's at in the system. We are going to roll out other things. Like we have plans to do inventory, stuff like that, right? Consuming portions of a bar of material versus the whole thing. A lot of stuff is to come to this thing, but as you're seeing it right now, very easily, you all can go in, filter out whatever it is you need to do, and just run parts, right? Like, how do we make it easier on you guys just to get the parts out the door in a timely manner? We are partially working on a couple of integrations to several websites for material polls, as well as some websites that you may or may not like when it comes to taking work. Cool. Any other questions about this? I like how there's so many people in here and it's almost quiet as can be in chat. 22 people that I know personally. Yeah, Jacob, it is 100%. We are building it with authentication and everything else. You must not be named. Jacob, this is your first time here, I feel like. Any other questions, guys? Open this all up to you. Anything in particular you want to see, anything that you have questions about, problems you've ran into, I'm here for you guys. If not, we could shut it down early. So it does look like, yeah, 40 minutes ago, Facebook page got approved. How many of you guys came from the Fusion CAM users Facebook? I'm always curious to know where you guys are coming from. Well, no other questions. None whatsoever. Hidden post data. Fanuc versus Haas. Any weird way to 3D deburr without an add-in? Oh, we could look at some stuff like that. YouTube notifications. Awesome. That's true. I never talk about that. You guys should sign up for notifications. A strange way to deburr. So I feel like we almost did talk about this. Oh, no, we talked about like deburring backside deburr. So as a whole, Jacob, I would go ahead and tell you what's going to work if you wanted to do it without the machining extension is if you use trace, you actually have the ability in trace to do chamfer. Now, keep in mind, this is going to offset to the left and offset down, but it is 3-dimensional. So on certain features, when you're running that tool up and down, your chamfer is going to vary because the math isn't as good as it could be, if that makes sense to you. So again, just something to keep in mind that trace, because trace is actually, it's 2D as a toolpath theory, but it does move in all 3 axes simultaneous. But this would be a way, as you could see on that like disc part they have there, is to follow up, down, and around, of course. Hidden post data. Deep Thinker, I'm going to need more information as to what you want to know hidden post data. Trace gouges real bad. Yeah, if you're gonna, so we actually did videos on that part forever ago. Yeah, it's one of those things that trace is not the best of solutions. But for most of you guys, this is what I would tell you. And this, it always shocks me. Now, some of you are different, but The amount of people we have that goes and buys a brand new machine and then comes to us and is a little upset about the price of the extension, there's so much value there, right? Again, the deburr toolpath so that I don't have to throw these in a tumbler or cut my fingers up every day. You know, toolpath trimming. There's so many things in that extension that's worth it. Yeah, funky offset face. Yep. 100%. Now, keep in mind, guys, you can do a 3-week or a 2-week free trial. Bought the extension just to pass the exometry test. Hey, I mean, 100%. You got to do what you got to do, right? So Deep Thinker's talking about Machine Center on home. Now, Deep Thinker, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. I think a lot of people, it's nice to have an option like Send Machine Center on home. But if you start to utilize a machine definition, is the ability to actually set your home position here works way better. So again, is instead of centering necessarily on the work offset, if you go into your kinematics tree, you could actually set a home position as well as hypothetically a tool change position now with that. So part center. So the part center one would be a little bit different. Now, I did do a video on how to generate things from your stock. Now, yes, in short, we could add that from the Fanuc post into the Haas post into the Fanuc post. I usually start to point people more at using machine definition because every time it's different. Now, another thing that works really good, and this is just me, I've also just put a work offset call out at the end of my program, so then I could always move my home location at the controller. %. Brian's correct, man. There's just the ability to probe on the fly and adjust cutter comp. If I run more than like 5 parts, I'm not wasting my time. No probe, and he's still using steep and shallow, 100%. Any other questions outside of that, guys? And gals, if there's gals out there as well. Sure, no problem. A good example of move entry position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a toolpath that's going to work really good for this. So give me a second here. As you guys will notice in some of these toolpaths, let's just do a 3D contour. That'll actually work the best. That is not the toolpath template I wanted. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and delete these two. So the reason why I am going to utilize 3D contour here, and we're going to go through and we're going to turn off contact only. Now that is a total mess. I might have to, let's do this here. I'm going to do this on the cube at first, and then we can change it up. So again, 3D contour, tool outside of boundary. So funny how this toolpath all of a sudden just does whatever it's wanting, right? Trying so hard to get you guys a good toolpath, and Fusion's fighting me because it wants to do the right thing. We don't want to ramp. We're just going to plunge, and now we should get, man, still getting some ramp. Give me a quick second here, guys. We're going to have to do this another way because it just wants to ramp down every profile step. Might be up. There we go. Had to go 1 inch. So presumably, as you can see, all my lead ins right now are coming off this corner. So the idea would be is moving my entry point would be nothing more than based on the view I'm looking at. Let's say, for example, I just want to come down this at an angle. As you're going to see is just by drawing that line, it has now changed where the entry and exit does around my part, right? So again, as if I go back and I edit whatever that line is, let's say, for example, I want to do something like this. Again, as you'll notice is I can set my entries and exits to wherever I want. A few other really neat things inside of there as you guys would get more into is the leads and linking is crazy powerful when we start to talk about 5-axis toolpaths, right? So I've done some videos where we've done deburr. So again, let's do this. Let's do deburr. Let's get a ball end mill here. This is actually a part for one of my customers that we're testing a right angle head on a 5-axis machine, if you guys are wondering. But here we have deburr. We're going to do deburr full 5-axis, and we're just going to let it do what it naturally does. Now, I've seen it where in the world of heights, instead of using planes, we could go to something like a sphere. Again, as you're noticing in real time, it is going to move all my linking moves to the outside of that sphere, which means I don't have to do full home retracts when moving from position to position, right? So if you guys have ever wondered why it retracts all the way out, retracts all the way in, can I help with the right angle head post processor? We're working on one right now, Scott. What machine you got? I tell you what, we'll give you 50% off for double the price. But yes, Scott, we can definitely help you with the right angle head. Go ahead and send us an email to info@, and we'll get you all set up, man. So again, the idea here is as you can see, is utilizing different clearances based on your options in multi-axis, which is a valuable thing. This is why Autodesk moved multi-axis further up in the equation, is the ability to utilize a completely different settings when it comes to how you want to get your linking moves and all of that set up. We don't want to go home every time we move the rotary. We can go ahead and utilize that to our head. 3-axis 90-degree head. Awesome, Scott. Send us an email down below to the info@, and we will definitely do what we can on our end to get you all set up with a right angle head post. But again, the ability to change your lead and linking moves, again, you can manipulate much further than most people would have ever imagined, where we could go through and we could take all of our moves in one shot, individual moves. We can even combined moves, which is crazy to me, that instead of making these retracts in and out, move here, move there, you could actually purge them all down, clean up how fast you are moving from one thing to another. Cool. Other questions you guys have outside of that? Going once, going twice? Nobody? Hey, happy Friday. Jacob's out. He's leaving. Thanks for coming, buddy. Anybody else have any other questions outside of that? We're going to go ahead and open it up to you guys. If you guys have any questions, any problems, I should probably check our ticket system to where I actually closed all of my windows out for some reason. I'm not seeing anything right now. I am seeing some spam email in my inbox, but that's about it. Nobody told me. Is the scrap email address down below? Adding tool change. Okay, adding tool data to the start of the tool change at the op level. Sure thing. So what you're wanting to do is when we post process, we do have that ability to turn things on and turn things off. As you guys may know, we have the right tool list turned on. But if I was to post out right now with my 1/2-inch flat end mill, one, we're failing here because direction is not supported, but we did get enough to know. Presumably, Deep Thinker, what you're looking for is to get this data here, down here at the tool change level, correct? I'll give you a second here to go ahead and put that in chat. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and fix the shenanigans that I have going on this part. And then for the sake of this, let's go ahead and just do a 2D contour. And then we're just going to come down from the top 1/2 inch. Apparently I did not hit the right buttons there. There we go. Now we're just doing a simple 2D contour. If I go in and I post process, what I would do, again, this is a post processor time, I guess, is first and foremost, you want to utilize the export CNC file post. The reason for this is going to spit out that exact cycle for me to edit in real time, right? It's not going to give me a generic cycle. It's actually going to give me this exact 2D contour. So now there's my posted out code. So now what I need to do is, one, I need to figure out what post I'm going to edit, of course. So let me go in and find a post that I, of course, completely butchered in here. We don't want to edit the actual post there. What do I got from my library? I know I used to have a secret area, free support Friday, do not use ever again because it's broken. So let's go for a Fanic post here. So we're going to copy this guy. We're going to paste that. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm actually going to go grab one of the Haas posts as well. And we're going to get that next gen control, copy, paste. There we go. And with that, let's go ahead and edit. So there's my Fanic post. And then when I go in, again, you guys are going to need the plugin installed. I have tons of videos on this. I'll show you where I got that post here in a second. So again, we go down to CNC selector. We now have a new category called custom. If you don't see it, just hit the refresh button. But what this allows me to do is, like I said, that 2D contour 3, it is now self-populated that exact cycle. Now, Deep Thinker, you were asking where I got that post processor. You can go to the Fusion library. It's an Autodesk post, or if you just search at the top in the Fusion library, you're going to notice that I have Autodesk Export CNC to Visual Studio Code. That's the actual post that I'm using to spit out the exact cycle that I'm trying to edit, right? Now, another one that you're also going to need here, and the reason why I want to show you guys this, it's called the dumper post. Same thing, you could search it. But what the dumper post is going to do is it's going to allow you to get, for this case, show tool values only. And now any of these tool values, you have the ability to use and input into your post, right? So as you can see, that 1001 DMP, as you're going to walk through these, you're going to have everything and anything from tool diameter offset, tool length, max tool length, minimum tool length, so forth and so on. So a combination of things that you can do, first and foremost, is if what you want is already up here at the top, for example, Z-min, as you can see with a couple double clicks, I'm jumping through, trying to find where it writes it. And as you can see, it says if zrange.tool number, this is where we could go through and copy that information out, right? So again, depending on what exactly you want, we could go ahead and take that entire if statement and possibly start there. So again, there's our right tool call. We're going to go ahead and post that right below it and hit save. And as you're seeing, I'm already starting to cause problems. Z range is not defined, which is a variable that we have up at the top. So again, this is where you just play that game of back and forth and do some minimal changes. Again, we're going to have to find where it's calling out Z range, variable Z range equals, and that is another thing that we would have to copy down below. So again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because it is going to take quite a bit, especially depending on all the information you want, because the way they have wrote this out is for a lot of these individual items to reference something that is a common variable across all of them. But Deep Thinker, that's the way I would go about it. Hey, Dennis, how's it going? Nice to see you. Can you help you with a 3-axis right angle head post processor? I don't know why I get a request yesterday from a guy about needing a right angle post. We 100% can, Dennis, but that is something you're going to have to send me a email to the info@ email address. Now, depending on what it is you're trying to do, and just to show you guys this, I always have to be clear with people because there's a couple of different specific use cases for this. This is why I'm asking you. It is free support Friday, Dennis. I can't tell you that it's not. The problem is when I go out and I post-process this particular one, and this is why it's something I can't really cover in a Friday situation. So as you guys are going to see here is I'm going to dump out, in this case, the 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock locations with tool orientation. So let's go ahead and get my post pulled up here. Where did that go? Here it is. Okay. So this is one that we were working on somebody. They're only working in a 3, 6, 9, or 12 o'clock orientation, right? So as you guys can see here is if I look top down, although my tool orientation is rotating around, my work offset Z is still vertical. So when we come into that first location and we're working in now, not actually on Z on the posted code, we're coming in on what is actually going to be the X axis. Then we're working in the ZY plane. So if I switch back, this was a post processor that somebody in this case only needed to be in 4 orientations. I could go ahead and pull out my actual debugger. And as you guys will see, this is where we have our right angle head calculation based on X, Y negative, X negative, and even X positive, so forth and so on. So this post processor is a custom post processor we have written, Dennis. So if you need something like this, you need to reach out to us at the info @ and we are more than happy to help incorporate and get you set up. Again, I have to say this is something I don't plan to visit on this free support Friday because there's so many different scenarios. The same customer now needs something completely different that is actually going to use like M19 tool orientation with an angle of degree based on running around what is more or less a structural part in aerospace. So again, is they need a lot more than just, hey, I need to be in X or Y direction only. We actually need to go in and build something out a lot more custom. But we do have this post, Dennis. Like I said, send us an email. We'd be more than happy to sit down and work with you and see what it is that you need. Any other questions outside of that? Opening it up to each and every one of you. Dennis, is that something that you're looking for is just 90 degrees? As you can see on this part, it would just be 90 degrees basically coming in only on X and Y. Yep. So as you can see, we have it. Is it a Haas or is it a Fanuc? Give you a few seconds here. Fanuc. Yep. So again, reach out to us with the info @ email address down below and we'll get you all squared away. Any other questions from anybody out there? Make sure nobody's put in any support tickets yet. Go ahead and resolve that guy. There we go. Going once, going twice. Nobody? No questions? 19 of you people bouncing in, bouncing out. Did we miss anything? I know we got a lot of questions. Jacob left us. Scott out there. Scott, are you still with us? Maybe I should go check my emails to make sure these guys are emailing us, right? I don't see any emails. Awesome. If I don't see, you need the same post processor. Awesome. Like I said, in that case, Scott, I mean, you each can pay half of double the price. So the cost really depends on how much you need done, Dennis. So we do a lot of things, whether it be our support package or a full-blown custom post. We have all the information on our website. Reason why I'm telling you guys to send us an email at the info email address is so that based on the person that is your rep, they can gather all the information, because sometimes it's not as easy, like I said, as you may need M19 to be able to orientate. You may need to turn yours on with through coolant spindle versus just a normal, you know, it's fixed 90 degrees one direction only, right? So we need to gather more info from you, and we'll definitely be able to determine from there what it's going to take. Cool. Any other questions outside of that, guys? Going once, going twice. Well, as you guys know, it's been yet again another lovely Fusion Friday. If you guys still have a question, throw it in the chat down below. If you're watching this at a later date and have questions at any time, there is a support email address down below that you can use. There's also an info @ email address that you guys can send us your questions to. always, if you guys learned something new, as Elijah did earlier, you can feel free to tip us with a lovely steak, a beer, move your software over to us. Anything you can do to help support this channel so that we can continue to build you guys these types of content, help you out, and get you set straight. Dylan with a question here at the end. Dylan's question is, do you sell FANUC wire program for wire EDM? So we have a lot of questions there again on something like that. So Dylan, my first question always is are we talking about a multi or like a 2-axis EDM, or are you working with like a 4-axis? Can you cut tapers? That would be my first and foremost question. If you're cutting tapers, we would need to move you actually into a product. Yeah, see, 4X. So you would be much better off with a seat of Feature Cam. Good news is Feature Cam comes with Fusion and the machining extension all rolled into one. But Feature Cam handles things like 4-axis EDM very, very well. Now, if you're only going to use it in a 2-axis environment, we can do a lot in the world of Fusion to generate whatever it is that your EDM needs just to cut 2-axis kinds of programs. Again, just like we stressed to you guys, Dylan, feel free to go ahead and send us an email down below and we'll get you guys all set up. Any other questions? None? Well, it's not what you guys know, it's who you know. You all know myself, Fusion Phil over here at jitcadcam. Obviously today we're also FANUC Phil. What was the other one? There was another F1 earlier. Fish and Lure Phil. Fish and Lure for sure. Dennis, do I get a discount? Of course. Feel free to harass the salespeople. Tell them Fusion Phil's going to hook you up on a better price. Feel free to get us that email as soon as possible. But I hope you guys have an outstanding weekend. I got to go cut my grass and now also write some good old-fashioned 4th-axis, or not 4th-axis, right-angle head post-processors. Awesome, Dennis. I'll go check the emails right now. With the rest of you guys, again, have a great weekend. Look forward to seeing you here next week. Thanks.